So, the first story we're going to cover tonight is recently made the news, but the study had been going on for maybe 2 years. So, there was a case of, well, it's known in science that crows will often hold funerals for other crows. And they've always kind of wanted to understand the phenomenon. Now, crows are incredibly intelligent. They've done so many studies on crows where crows will remember you as an enemy for like up to 2 years. There was a guy, and I think it was even longer than that. There was this professor who was throwing rocks at crows for whatever reason, for science, I guess. And then the crows would attack him, and he ended up going to you know what's funny? I'm going to tell you the story, and I honestly probably can't back it up. I don't know if I can ever find this article again, but the scientist was throwing, I'm assuming he was a scientist, was throwing rocks at crows on his college campus. He ended up getting a job in another college campus. He came back years later to visit some friends. He got attacked by crows. He'd gotten attacked by crows the whole time he was working there, which made him want to throw more rocks, but even after he left and came back, the crows remembered him and continued to attack him. They've done studies where people have been mean to crows, and then other people have had worn masks of the person who was mean to crows, and the crows attacked them. Again, I'll see if I can find those links to prove what I just said. I'll see if I can find that information. But if you don't see the links, then you'll just have to take my word for that. But anyway, so they have observed crows holding funerals, and one of the hypotheses is that the crows aren't necessarily mourning the dead. What it is they know that there's an enemy in the area, so they're trying to figure out what killed it. They're trying to do a little bird CSI for caw scene analysis. Anyways, anyways, so they try to figure out what killed it so they won't die themselves. So they don't necessarily know if it's like a funeral, like releasing the bird spirit to heaven. So this scientist got together with this film crew, and she's like, oh, we're going to have this, I'm going to run this experiment. You guys can be there and you can record the birds having the funeral. So the camera crew gets there and they put out this fake, well, it's a real bird, but it's dead and it's stuffed. They put it in the road, and another crow flies down, looks at it, and begins to hump it. Begins to try to dry hump it. And the scientist is like, that's not what they're supposed to do. So for 2 years, she was taking these stuffed crows and leaving them around the Pacific Northwest. I think it was in Portland, actually. Maybe Seattle. But anyways, and out of 4% of all the cases, she did this like 200 times or something like that. Out of 4% of these cases, the bird had sex with the dead bird. And in one case, the dead bird was there, and then two birds came down and started banging each other in front of the dead bird. And her hypothesis is that it tends to happen during mating season, and she goes, it's not because there's not enough mates to go around. She even saw one time that a bird's mate was in the area, and the bird still came and banged the dead body. So it's like cucking with a dead bird, which has to be the ultimate form of cuckoldry. But she says that when they're in mating system, their brains actually aren't working right, because in some of the cases, the birds would attack the corpse, and in most of the cases, the birds would go down and try to figure out what's going on. So she thinks that when mating season comes around, the birds, the wiring is mixed up in their brain, and so they don't know how to react. They want to figure out the danger, they want to attack it as a interloper into their area, and they want to have sex with it, like all things are coming together. Yeah, so now it's part of crow science that 4% of these dead birds will get molested at some point. And it just, 4% is such a small percentage that it probably wasn't seen. And if somebody did just see it, a layperson would be like, oh, that bird's just kind of jumping around that other bird, because birds don't have penises. I guess they just like rub their vents against each other. And it was funny, too, because this scientist, she got the cops called on her a couple times because all the people in the neighborhood would see is a woman go and set down a dead crow and then retreat to the bushes with a pair of binoculars. So people in the neighborhood were quite nervous of why she was doing all of this stuff. But I just thought that was an interesting story. It popped up. Oh, and the pun, obviously, is, I didn't make this up, it was in. The scientist actually put this in her paper, which was great. Putting the crow in Necrophilia. That's, if there's a Nobel Prize for great great scientific phrases. That's the one. That might have actually been the name of her paper, honestly. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.